Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. It is the official last Thursday before school here in Georgia lets out, which I can tell you for any parent that is here in Georgia, we're excited because I don't know about other parents, but I personally feel like I always joke and call it Manic May because it is just a whirlwind these last couple of weeks with class parties. They always want to throw in like field day and other things going on. So it is just kind of a mad race to get to the end. But I am one of those that I try to, in the midst of everything, remind myself, and I always have my mom in my ear, one day you will miss this. So I do try and slow down, and I hope you do too, and embrace everything. I know a lot of you that are in like California, New York, your schools are still in for quite a while, but you go back a little bit later in the fall. So it's always interesting to me because when people are trying to time the move here, they get out later, but then we go back earlier. So it gets a little complicated. But thank you guys for joining me on this beautiful Thursday. The weather here is actually super nice. It was really hot earlier this week. And then today we had a little bit of overcast. The weather was really kind of a breezy, no sunshine, but not super cold kind of day. So I can deal with this kind of weather. Maybe a light jacket, take it off if you want. So thank you guys so much for joining me. Tell me where you guys are joining from. I would love to hear from you. ATAC Defense, yes, we are having some great weather, right? Loving it, loving it. So tell me where you guys are joining from. It is always so interesting to hear from where everybody is tuning in. I love to hear everybody's different perspectives. And today we've got some very interesting information. So I'm going to kind of be bouncing around because there's so many different things that I want to talk with you about and share with you and make sure that we get covered. As always, if you have any questions or thoughts, definitely jump into the chat. I love when you guys jump into the chat. These lives are done specifically for you guys to make sure that we're educating you as best as possible. I am specifically talking about the Georgia market for the most part. Sometimes I'm going to throw in some national things like today, just to kind of show you the chaos and craziness that goes on. But I love when you guys jump into the chat because it just makes it that much more fun. So Anthony, Big Buford in the house right after an HOA. Gotta love those HOA meetings, man. Do yours ever get crazy? Because sometimes mine, depending on who all is there, it can get a little chaotic. Tensions can rise. We just got a new management company. My neighborhood has been community run for the longest time because I live in an older community and we just got a management company, and there's definitely been some tensions about, do we like the management company? Do we not like the management company? So I'll definitely be interested to see ours get heated at times. Yeah, I feel like when you get people all in a room, different thoughts, different ideas, things can happen. So it's definitely an interesting time. So let's jump in because I want to make sure that we're getting everything in today. So I'm going to share my screen with you here. Thankfully today it's working. So I'm sure you guys a couple of weeks ago heard me talking about this, that they were going to be putting in some new mortgage fees that were coming up, and a lot of pushback was being had from real estate agents, from buyers, potential buyers that were going to be in the market or currently in the market. And then a lot of people that were in the mortgage industry were having a lot of pushback on these because one of them was the one that was going to be, if you have good credit, and if you are putting a substantial amount of money down, like 15 to 20% or more, you were going to be incurring a fee. The other one that we had discussed is this one right here, where if you have a higher debt to income ratio, they were also going to be tacking on a fee. So completely separate fees. They're not associated together, completely separate. However, this one has been canceled. So that is a win for us in the real estate market and for you if you are a potential buyer, which is really super exciting. So I wanted to dive in. Oh, look, we've got Betty coming in from Dawson. Hey, Betty, it's always great to see you. Romania. Okay, Deborah, look at you. Thank you for tuning in. That's fantastic. Love all of the countries being represented here. So let's take a look at this because this is super exciting. Thank the Lord, they actually have made a good decision for once. And we're looking at that this is going to be completely canceled. It has been taken off. So if you look at this, basically, they had put this in place. If you had a debt to income of 40% or more. And so I kind of, I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth right now because I truly do not believe that you should really get into a mortgage that is going to be higher than 40% of your income. I feel like that is extremely dangerous for you, as the borrower, because if anything changes in that mortgage, and people a lot of times don't think about, well, nothing's going to change. Everything can always change. A lot of people recently just received their assessments and their mortgage went up because the tax assessments came up, taxes went up. And so now what's going to happen? Well, their mortgage is going to increase to offset what you didn't pay because you're always paying in arrears. So that being said, if you're already on a tight budget and your DTI is over 40%, and now that tax comes in and you've got to go up, that makes you that much tighter. I don't care if it's $20, that's $20 that you did not have in your budget. So I would definitely be careful in doing this. However, I do think that it's a win just for the simple fact it says here, the fee would have been levied on certain borrowers with debt to income ratios above 40%. DTI, or debt to income, is the portion of your pre-tax monthly income spent on paying recurring debts, including mortgages, rent, and credit card balances. So some people get a little bit confused on what is included in this. If you have to make payments on student loans, if you have credit cards, however many credit cards, if you have car payments, anything that is something, even like if you have to pay child support or alimony, these are all monthly payments that are recurring payments that they're going to consider in your debt to income. So those are what they are looking at. Now, where this is a little bit tough, if you are a borrower that maybe you have perfect credit, you've paid everything off, every single month, but maybe your income isn't as much. And so when you're trying to get into a home, maybe you're a first-time home borrower, your debt to income might be a little bit more. And that's where I'm kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth, because I will say that in that situation, if you're looking at, I just got started in this job and I have the potential to move up, I have the potential for this promotion coming up, and you see that this is just because you're just getting started and you're going to be moving up, that is one time where potentially you can go ahead and do a higher debt to income ratio on the basis of what is coming in the future. But again, you have to keep in mind that if anything changes with those taxes, or for some reason you don't get that promotion, you get laid off, you have to be able to pay that mortgage. Georgia is a state where they don't have to take you to court to take your home. They can just file and come knock on your door and you're out of there. So you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So taking a look at this a little bit further, it was clear from the outset that this upfront fee would hurt future mortgage borrowers. So the mortgage industry really came out to fight for borrowers. Obviously, it was for the mortgage people as well, just because if borrowers aren't out there borrowing the money, lenders aren't able to do their jobs, and realistically, neither are realtors. So let's be realistic here. Borrowers with a DTI ratio above 40% would have had to pay an additional 0.375 fee on their home that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac would acquire. On a $300,000 loan, that would have translated into an $1,100 upfront fee. Or if the borrower couldn't pay that and chose a higher interest rate instead, it would cost another $24.75 a month. Over the life of the loan, 30 years, that would mean an additional almost $9,000. Now, let's be realistic here, though. Most people do not stay in their home for 30 years. Very few people stay in their home for 30 years. If you look at it realistically, most people stay in their home between 7 to 10 years, some even less. So you really have to look at it and see $24.75 a month over 7 years. That's not going to be that $8,900 a month. So it would not have been a ton of money. However, a win is a win. The fact that they are taking this off, hopefully we'll start to see some of these changes, which is a super, super positive thing. It says here also, though, let's just bring it back up. There's also the unfairness issue. A couple could have a near perfect credit score with no credit card debt, pay their bills on time, but through no fault of their own, have a DTI ratio of 41%, and then they have to pay their fee. So this is going to come back to what I was just talking about. If you are one of those people that, potentially you're a first-time home buyer, you're just getting into this, and maybe you don't have the income quite yet, but it's coming down the road. You know that you're set for a promotion. That's one of those things where you might have a little bit higher of debt to income right now, but within a year or two, it could very well settle out. So I am super happy to see that this is coming off. So you guys drop a like in the comment or tell me your thoughts on this. Like I said, I see both sides, but I'm super happy that it's a win for us. Something else that I wanted to share with you guys, because I just thought this was funny as I looked through things. The last couple of years, I feel like have just been a whirlwind. If you've been keeping up the real estate market at all, you will see that it is a complete just up and down. It's like you're on a roller coaster. And if you're like me, I don't like roller coasters. I like to kind of know what's ahead. So it's been a really tough time to kind of predict what comes next. And I know a lot of people, you watch the news, you read the articles, a lot of people are really trying to time the market, and it's virtually impossible to do so. The thing is, and this is what I just had this conversation with somebody else earlier today, it is virtually impossible to time the market because of the simple fact, if you are selling your home when the market is high, you're potentially selling at the top of the market and you're getting a lot of money for your home, then you're going to turn around and you're going to have to pay a lot of money to buy a home because the market is high. You sold high, you buy high. However, if you wait to buy when the market has come down, well, then you're probably also selling when the market has come down. The only way to kind of temper this is if you sell when it's high and you get into a rental for a little while until the market comes down, and then you buy when it's low. However, you probably just spent a lot of money in between there on the rent because rent is super inflated right now, super high. And so you have to kind of think of that in terms of, if I'm spending, let's say, $2,000 a month on rent, and I'm going to rent for a year. That's $24,000 that you just spent on rent that you could have just spent on the next purchase because you sold at a high time. Also, the problem that we're continuing to have right now is the lack of inventory. So if you wait until there's more inventory or until interest rates come down, now you're going to have a lot of competition because there's still a lot of buyers that are currently out there searching for a home just like you. And so if you're waiting, like a lot of people right now are like, I'm just done. I'm exhausted. I'm going into a rental for right now, and we'll see what's on the other side. Well, you're not the only one that's doing that. So if you wait until kind of things settle or interest rates come down, you're going to be in a lot of company while doing that. And so now you're going to be in competition. You're going to possibly be looking at multiple offers. You're going to possibly be looking at not as much inventory again, because with more inventory comes more buyers, because a lot of people are just really frustrated. However, what frustrates me, and this is why I do these live videos, is the information that we receive, or you receive specifically as buyers, sellers in the market, can be so confusing. Because let's just take a look at what's gone on, right? So this was just written, and it talks about how housing starts are less than expected. So the stock index Futures are higher as congressional leaders said Tuesday talks on the debt limit were productive, but they are still far from a deal. So what does that mean? Mortgage applications in the US declined 5.7%, and applications to refinance a home fell 7.7%. April housing starts were 1.4 million when 1.405 million were expected. So not a huge reduction. However, it is a reduction. Debt ceiling worries are likely to limit gains in futures. So what does that really mean in terms for you? So with housing starts down, a lot of that I think is due to the fact of the uncertainty. Builders aren't sure what to expect. Buyers aren't sure what to expect. However, so if you take a look at this, housing starts are less than expected. If we go over here and we look at this, this was written March 16th. So just a couple months ago. Housing starts are healthier than expected. Oh, well, okay, so that's great news. But then you come back over here and now housing starts are less than expected just 2 months later. So if we go over here and we look at October of 2022, single family home starts fall to lowest level in more than 2 years. So we literally are on that roller coaster, you guys, of starts are down, no starts are up, no starts are down. How are people supposed to really interpret the market and figure out the right move for them when literally all of the information that we are being fed is like this, right? It's a roller coaster of information. And how are you supposed to interpret what's really going on and time the market? And this is why I tell people, and I'm telling you right now, do not time the market. When you are ready to purchase a home, when you have saved the amount of money that you feel comfortable saving, when you have found the house that you feel like is the right home for you, when you feel like it's the right time for your kids to get into that school district, whatever it is, why you are purchasing, your why when it comes to why are you buying this home? Is it to get your kids into a different school district? Is it because of a job? Is it because you're tired of the location and you want to move somewhere else? When you are prepared, bite the bullet, because you can always refinance. If interest rates are high right now, you can always refinance when they come down, whenever that may be. If it's later this year, if it's next year, you can always refinance. If housing prices continue to rise, which currently in Georgia they are, you're going to be able to ride that wave up. Let's flip the cart. Let's say that home prices dive. If you ask anybody that owned a home in 2008 and they rode the roller coaster out, every one of them has every dollar that they lost back and then some. So what I'm trying to say is do what is best for you. You can educate yourself into a complete panic. You can educate yourself into complete no production of moving forward into what your goals are. So when you are ready, make the move. Do it. Pull the plug, whatever you want to call it. But make sure that it's something that you're doing because you are ready and not because the media is feeding into you, not because a realtor or a lender is telling you it's the right time or it's completely the wrong time, but because you are financially stable and ready to do what is right for you. Anthony, let's see. Is it because of the volatility we're seeing more builders starting multifamily homes instead of single family? That's actually a two-part answer. Yes, because of the volatility. I personally think that you're going to see this kind of the norm. I think especially here in Georgia. So over the years in Georgia, we've had larger lot sizes. We've had larger properties back. I think we had this conversation a couple weeks ago, but like in the 60s, 70s, houses were a lot smaller. Everything was 2,000 square feet or less. You know, even some of your really nice homes, 2,000 square feet was the max. And over the years, our homes got bigger and bigger and bigger. And because Georgia had so much land still available compared to places like New York or California, we would build on larger lots. And truthfully, that is what a lot of people love about Georgia, is the fact that you can get a property, with a little bit of acreage. However, land is being bought up and built up quite quickly here. You'll notice that to get acreage in the suburbs or even in the city, you either have to pay dearly or you have to go with an older property. So my personal home is built in 1988. I have just under an acre, but my home is an older home. We had to come in and do a lot of renovations to this property, but my husband wanted a little bit of acreage. I wanted to be in suburbia, not in the middle of nowhere. So our compromise was buy a fixer-upper, and that's what we've been doing forever. So that being said, you have to either move a little bit further out in order to find that land, or you have to be willing to pay for it. A lot of people are moving into Georgia. So I think what we're going to continue to see is either condos, townhomes where they're building up compared to out. You're not going to see the large footprint houses that we've seen unless, again, you're paying for it. Because the other thing about with the larger footprint houses is those home prices have gotten so high for single family homes. Your basic home these days is around $700,000 for new construction. Well, that price is a heck of a lot of people out of being able to afford a home. So if your average single family new construction is $700,000, you're kind of at the very, very top of the middle class, and then it's the upper class. So what about everybody else? So that's where I think we're going to start seeing a lot more condos where they're stacked, or townhomes where they're building up. They can really make better use of the land and pack more homes in. That's why a lot of new construction people complain, well, why are they so close together? There's no yard. It's like having row houses. Because the cost of land is so expensive, the builder has to make his money back. And in order to do so, he crams as many in on that land that he possibly can. People do not realize the cost of land right now is through the roof. So for a builder to buy that land, then have to build on that land, people don't take into consideration all of what the builder has to go through with getting permits, with doing percolation tests to make sure that water can be done, to run utilities to it. This is all stuff that's done before the first structure is even started. So there's a lot that goes into it from the builder side before even you start to see the structure going up. The other part to that, with the multifamily, we've seen a ton of multifamily where generations are living together. And we haven't always really built that type of house. Now, if you go overseas, a lot of European countries, a lot of Asian countries, it's a very different ballgame there, because they've always had the mindset of my parents will be living with me, or they stayed living with their parents longer. It's always been multi-generational cultures there. And it's what's the norm. Here in the United States, we haven't always done that. And so it's something that you're starting to see. And I think we started to see it more and more because of the cost of living. But a lot of people are really starting to see the benefit of it because of the fact, if you have kids, especially younger kids, I can tell you from personal experience, it is like none other to have your in-laws or to have your own parents living with you to help with the children, especially if you have husband and wife both working out of the home. It is imperative that you have family or friends. You always hear that saying, it takes a village. They are not lying. It does take a village in order for you to raise those kids. And so having multi-generations in the house is extremely helpful. So I think because of cost of living and cost of buying, you're really going to start to see those multi-generational properties more and more. Anthony, did that help answer your question? I know I was kind of bouncing back and forth there, but I really do think there's two sides of the coin there. I think it's because of the cost of the land, we're going to start seeing more townhomes, more condos, and then the multi-generational living, I do think is just because it's kind of the new thing here. But it's also because of cost. I don't know if you guys have been seeing signs, but a lot of the neighborhoods that you're passing right now, for new construction, you're looking at roughly $600,000 to $700,000 for no basement, your basic structure. If you're looking to add a basement, you're probably looking at 7 to 750. Some of them even start higher than that. And something that has been brought up multiple times here in Georgia and is kind of made me laugh is a lot of people have noticed builders are kind of getting away from using hardwood floors, which for us here in Georgia has always been like an upgrade. If you had hardwood floors throughout, or you had hardwood floors, in a lot of the main areas, that was definitely an upgrade. That was a nice house. And if you had carpet, a lot of people would tear out the carpet and would put hardwoods. Now you're starting to see more of the what's called LVP, which is like a laminate flooring. It's a very nice laminate flooring. It's not like just a sheet that, if you think back, you would see just those sheets laid out in like the laundry room or the bathroom. Is very cheap looking. These are really nice, like click together floors. It's a laminate. It is extremely durable and it's more cost effective. And so you're starting to see that a lot of builders are putting that in properties. And some people have been really turned off by this. I would tell you to try and open your mind because number one, it's extremely durable. So if you have pets, if you have kids, water intrusion, any of those things, it is so much better when it comes to those things because it's not going to be scratched. It's not going to be dented. It's not foolproof because if you were to have a major leak and it was to get underneath the flooring, they would still have to rip it up because you run the risk of getting mold under there between the floor and the subfloor. However, it is going to wear and tear a lot better than hardwood floors. And the flip side to that also is the fact that it is much more cost effective than hardwood floors. So throughout the last couple of years, when we were having shortages of a lot of things, hardwood floors was a pain. And so these laminate floors was something that was easier to get in. It cost a little bit less. So it was bringing the cost of housing down, being able to put these in. And you would notice hardwood floors was something that they might put in like the foyer. They might probably put in the kitchen, but that was really the only areas that it was considered like standard from a builder. You could go in as a new buyer and add that hardwood into the dining room, or you could add it into the living room, the main level. Very rarely would the builder take it to the second floor if you had a second story. And that's just because it costs a lot more to do. And they were not willing to run the risk of you perhaps backing out of the contract. And then now they've got this house that is incredibly expensive and they have to resell this property. However, I've really noticed with new construction builders now, they're putting those laminate floors through most of the main floor as a standard feature, which a lot of people are really loving. So I would ask you to open your mind a little bit to accept those other types of flooring. And there's some really, really pretty options. So make sure that you're checking it out. Anthony, that makes sense. You're welcome. I definitely think that we're going to see building change here in Georgia. I cannot speak for other areas of the country, but I do think that here in Georgia, we are going to see the types of homes evolve. We kind of went from the 50s, 60s, 70s. We had the smaller, like the 50s, 60s, you had those smaller, maybe bi-level homes where you walk in, you've got your main floor, your kitchen, your living room, upstairs is bedrooms, downstairs, maybe you had a den. If you go in Georgia to like Chamblee, Dunwoody, Roswell, you have a lot of those homes, 50s and 60s. 70s, you had those mid-century modern, where a lot of them were ranch style houses. You have to keep in mind that those ranch style houses, they're a bigger footprint. So you have a bigger lot, but the house itself was not that big. You're probably looking at 1,500 square feet. You're probably looking at 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Very, very rarely would you see multiple bedrooms with bathrooms attached, like secondary. You would have your owner suite, and then you would have all of the secondary bedrooms sharing. Then over time, by the 90s, you were really starting to see these larger homes. By the 2000s, 3,000 square foot, 3,500 square feet. That was the norm. That was what homes were just being built. You had the two-story great rooms. Everybody loved the two-story great rooms. It was absolutely beautiful. Well, then come, 2008, 9, 10, people realized those two-story great rooms are awful. You cannot heat the house. You cannot cool the house. It is virtually impossible to keep the temperature regulated. So if you really notice, you don't see those two-story great rooms a lot anymore. If you pay attention to the patterns, houses evolve. And I think that's what we're about to start seeing now, because we've gotten to the point that land is scarce in all of the areas that people want to live. There's still a ton of land in the US, but it's in places that people don't necessarily want to go. It's not as built up. It's not urbanized. There's not a city where you're working. You're having to commute. So a lot of people that thankfully over the last couple of years were able to do teleworking, working from home, or maybe they're just having to go in every once in a while. They have taken the liberty and moved to some of these more rural locations because they're not having to commute all the time. However, if you're still having to commute into work, or you just like the urban lifestyle, I'm one of those. My husband wants to live in the middle of nowhere. Y'all, I like to eat, and I like to eat good restaurants, and I want to be close. I'm totally bougie when it comes to my food. I want good restaurants and good food. And so I still want to be within 20 to 30 minutes of being able to get to these restaurants on a regular basis. So I'm not willing to move out too far. So that being said, I have to compromise on either getting a smaller lot or spending more money. And so that's something that you really have to look at. And that's why I think we are really going to see a shift in the type of homes that are built here. So Anthony, I think you're onto something, and I think you're seeing the trend already started. Have you noticed any market or investor influence from big corporations or international buyers affecting the residential sales market? 100% yes. I actually went on a rampage on my Instagram the other day, so I apologize if you guys saw that, but I actually received an email that was from another realtor, but this realtor only represents, so in the real estate market, I have my real estate license. I do residential resale. I do not work for a builder. A lot of residential realtors, if they work for a builder specifically, they're not able to do resale. So like if they work for a Lennar Homes or any other type of builder, DR Horton, they're tied to that builder, right? So I received an email the other day that was from an agent that specifically works for a builder. I won't name them just to, I guess, be fair and nice. However, I'll think on that. Maybe I will. They sent an email out to all of the agents in the area that have sold homes within the area saying, we have some new construction that's going to be coming up. It's a very affordable price of $300,000 to $400,000. So right in that sweet spot for new buyers that are probably either just getting into the market or maybe they're trying to downsize, but it's that sweet spot where we're not seeing a lot of new construction built. But the email was geared towards, it said, bring all of your investors, bring your corporations. And it pissed me off so much that you're basically calling and telling me they didn't even mention first-time home buyers. They didn't mention a residential buyer in any fashion. It was geared 100% towards bring your corporate to come and buy up our new construction because it's at an affordable price. They were even talking about incentives given to realtors that could close within a certain time frame. So absolutely, we are still seeing that. And it's very frustrating because I feel like while they're trying to tack on all these fees that we keep talking about, if we would just be able to somehow put a pause on all of the corporations that are buying up in bulk. And I'm not talking about the mom and pop, investors where, maybe Debbie, you and your husband are going and buying a house and flipping it or buying it and holding it as an investment so that you can give it to your child one day. I'm not talking about that kind. I'm talking about corporations where this is massive amounts of money that can completely buy us out of the market. they're coming in and they're just buying up anything that is remotely affordable. So these $300,000 and $400,000 properties are most likely going to be bought up rather quickly. And what do you think is going to happen with that? Because one of the key points that was in this email was there's no cap rates. So they have no rental restrictions in this particular neighborhood. So what do you think is really going on there? Somebody just drop it in the chat. Tell me, what do you think is really going on there? They're selling out the neighborhood without selling out the neighborhood. They're being very sneaky about the fact that they don't want to post it that this is a rental community, right? Because then that builder looks bad. But if they're targeting, they're sending emails to other agents that are doing resale. They're sending emails to us saying there's no cap rate in here. This is great for your investors. They could rent out the whole world if they wanted to. Well, so you're basically just trying to create a rental community without looking like the bad guy is what's going on here. Renting the American dream. Exactly, Anthony. That's exactly what they're doing. And it's so frustrating to me because why not give potential first-time homebuyers an opportunity to get into an affordable $300,000 to $400,000 range? And let's be realistic, $400,000 for your first-time home, y'all, that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money for a first-time home buyer. Think of your first home. What was it for my husband and I think we paid $196,000. We had a 4-bedroom house in Flowery Branch, very nice house, for $196,000. Now, given this was an eternity ago, now I'm looking at property I can't even find property for $196,000, much less looking at new construction for $300,000 to $400,000. And they're targeting, looking for investors because they just want these homes bought up. Builders just want these homes gone. They want to sell out. They don't care who it goes to because they're making their money back. So I think it's going to be very interesting what our market looks like over the next 12 to 24 months. If you think that this upcoming year, and when I'm talking about 2024, isn't going to affect the housing market, you're in for a rude awakening. What we see play out this year, again, is going to be very influenced by the Fed, because I was going to also read this article. Forgive me as I look at my paper, but I want to make sure that I don't misspeak, because Lori Logan, she's the Dallas Fed president. She says that the current data doesn't justify a pause in interest rates, and she is still predicting that we're going to have another rate hike. I don't know the writing on the wall that she sees, but I definitely don't feel like another rate hike is the way to go. But she is saying that we will hear from Jerome Powell tomorrow and see how that goes. Man, I don't even know what to say on that one, because I definitely feel like we should stick with where we are. I actually don't feel like we should have had this last rate hike, but again, I'm not in charge. They are, because of the banks that are going, all over the place, the debt ceiling fears. I think once we hear what's going to come up with that, because they're waiting to see if a deal is made, once we get some structure on that and some just clarification on what we look like moving forward, I think that will definitely help, Anthony. And next year is an election year. That's my point. If people think that election year is not going to rock the housing market, you're in for a rude awakening, because certain parties will do whatever they need to do in order to drive votes. And it always is out to the masses. Nothing is getting done. Exactly. 100% agree with you there. So I think that this year we might see a little bit of structure come toward the end of the year. Once we get through some of the debt ceiling talks and what that's going to look like, I think that we'll definitely see a little bit of stability in the fall. But the spring market that usually blooms right now, you're not going to see. We're so low on inventory. We're back below 2 months of inventory. That is incredibly, incredibly low. So one of the things I was going to read to you guys, and again, forgive me for looking at my paper, but I want to make sure that I don't misspeak. Existing home sales, which measures closings on existing homes, showed that sales were down 3.4% in April. And over year, sales are down 23%. So you wonder why things are the way they are. The slower pace of sales is due to the lack of inventory. We just don't have enough houses. And so people are having to get into rental situations. And then when they are able to find a home, they're just buying out the rent. So that's something that people have asked before. What if I'm renting? Then what do I do? One of the questions I would ask up front if you're looking to rent is, what is it going to cost me to break my lease? So if you're 3 months into your lease and you find the right house, it pops up on the market because inventory is just so low right now. 3 months down the road, something pops up. What is it going to cost you? A lot of places, it's just your first and last month's rent. So if you have that kind of budgeted already in your mind, the good thing is, let's say that the house of your dreams pops up today. It's, the middle of May. Let's say we close on it tomorrow. You don't have your first house payment. You get June, you don't have to pay your house payment because you just closed. They're kind of giving you like a breather month. And then you would start paying for your home. Your first monthly payment would come in July. So that gives you a little bit of breathing room if you have to do that first and last month's rent to break that lease. But then if you look at this, inventory levels increase slightly, but still remain very low. There is only 2 months supply of homes, which is tight because almost 6 months is considered a normal market. So we are well below what a stabilized market should be. If you look at active listings, there are 563,000 that are currently on the market. However, that's considering, or that is also including all of the homes that are under contract. So there's not really that full amount of homes that are available. Half of those are already under contract. The median sales price right now, and this is including the entire state of Georgia. So I don't feel that this is a really fair comparison. Each neighborhood is different, but the median sales price currently is right at $400,000, which is up 3.5% from last month. So again, I go back to that. When you're ready to buy. Home prices are going to fluctuate. Right now, they continue to go up. We're seeing still a steady increase, 3.5% higher than last month. That's substantial. Georgia usually goes up around 4 to 6% for the entire year. Obviously, the last 2 years, it was completely different. That's not our normal market. So get the last 2 years out of your head. That is not sustainable. That is not what we're going to continue to see, hopefully. But if the housing market goes down, it will rebound. It always does. And so you buy when you are prepared, when you have the money, and make sure that if you're buying, that you can withstand if the market goes down, that you can take that downturn so that when it bounces back, you're in a good position because it will only increase. If you talk to those people that owned a home, they bought in 06, 07, people were like, oh my God, you bought at the worst time in history because then in 08 it crashed. Why don't you ask those people that bought in 06 and 07 what their equity is now? It's substantial because in the last 2 years, they gained 15 to 20% alone. And before that, they were still gaining equity. So they gained all of their money back and then some. So no, they didn't make a bad investment. They just made an investment. So make sure that you're doing the same thing. If you need help or have questions, you guys know that I'm here. Email me directly. Other than that, I hope you have an amazing night, an amazing weekend, and I will see you guys next Thursday at the same time, 7 p.m. See you guys then.